Making a difference in healthcare requires collaboration between researchers, startup founders, and policymakers. This is what Delta is about, hosting conversations with leaders on the path to serious innovation. Hello everyone, my name is Roupen, and I'm a physician on a journey to meet people who are making a delta in healthcare. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm so excited today. This is episode 2 with Aaron. He's a senior financial analyst from PitchBook. For you, if you guys don't know PitchBook, it's a great place to get your information about what's going on in the market, the latest trends, the acquisitions, the mergers, and everything that related to healthcare and even beyond healthcare. I signed up to their newsletter and I follow their newsletter and I follow closely what Aaron published. And today I'm so excited that we're going to talk about the most important events that happened in Q1 2024. Aaron, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back on.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for being here. All righty. So without further ado, let's talk about, in general, Q1 2024 HealthTech. Can you tell me what are the most important events that happened in the first quarter?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're already kind of in the third quarter here. And then looking back to Q1, I could talk about, what happened in the second quarter as well, but just kind of going back to Q1, at least within the medtech sector, we saw a couple, notable VC deals, medical micro instruments in the surgical robotics space raised over 100 million, and then Freenome in cancer detection raised over 250 million. So that was a pretty meaningful round. That is definitely one of the largest medtech health tech investments of the year to date. Although it was just bested a few days ago with Element Biosciences $277 million round. So I think we're seeing kind of a few of these pretty large deals that we didn't really see as much last year. So that's I think a positive sign overall. And then on the M&A side, I think one theme that's definitely stood out is we've seen large strategics go out and acquire smaller public companies. We saw that in Q1 with Boston Scientific acquiring Axonics, and then more recently with Boston also purchasing Silk Road Medical. And then an even larger one was Johnson & Johnson's acquisition of Shockwave. So that was a pretty big deal, valued about 13 billion there. Those are kind of a couple things that come to mind. Also some deals in the $100 million range for Carius and BillionToOne. So it is shaping up to be a pretty strong year of funding for in novel diagnostics. And then it's kind of an open question if the M&A market will continue, but I think there's been a decent number of transactions. I think it's on the larger side this year, but maybe downstream it's definitely still been pretty maybe hard to get some deals done.
Yeah, and so the interesting trend here, although we're almost, I don't know if we're at the end or maybe still in the AI bubble.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't heard any AI companies. It's mostly diagnostics, right?
Yeah, I think so for sure. AI is applicable to health tech in certain areas, but I think a lot of what touches the human body is perhaps not when you're talking about diagnostics and you're talking about hardware. There are AI applications, for example, in precision medicine. I think that ties into an extent, like the rounds that we saw for Element and Freenome, kind of when you're getting into the realm of precision oncology. There's a lot of AI applications there. All these companies have been around certainly before the AI hype wave. But there's also been interest, I think, on the provider-facing side in clinical documentation. Areas like that have also seen investment. And then on the patient-facing side, I think it's sort of an open question of whether patients are willing to interact with mental health chatbots, for example. I don't think there's been a lot of major funding rounds in that area. There's certainly startups in that space, and they're kind of subscale right now. But that's kind of maybe another area where we could see more AI-driven activity.
Yeah, and looking at also the acquisitions, whoever is listening to us, they can go to PitchBook and they can download the report. It's like the acquisitions that happened usually they are in the oncology space, which is a space close to my heart given I'm an oncologist. So Freenome is a company that focuses on early detection of cancer. Kudos to you guys. Invitae, it's another company that was, I think, bankrupt, but their assets were bought by another. Invitae, it's a company that helps in precision medicine. Again, it's diagnostics, but unfortunately it went bankrupt, but its asset was bought by another company. So it is like mostly diagnostic, as you said. Cancer space and cardiology space, it looks like also like taking a good chunk of this quarter. And as you mentioned, there aren't much in the mental space.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree with that. Oncology has been driving factor, cardiovascular as well. Kind of these kind of large condition areas. I would say like if we're just thinking of AI, there's a lot going on in the biopharma space, which is not not exactly health tech, but certainly a lot of strong innovation happening there. But yeah, I mean also on oncology, our team was working on putting together a health tech an oncology-focused health tech report actually that's going to be coming out in the next two months. So we'll have kind of maybe a deeper view of that space and kind of the opportunities there as well.
They are talking music to my ears, my friend. That's awesome. And now I'm looking at the report. So in Q1 2024, I feel like it is similar to maybe actually it's better than Q1 2023, and it is similar to bit lower than, but like it is around the same range of 2022, 2023, maybe 2021. Like it is similar, like things hasn't changed.
Yeah.
This quarter is similar to previous year's quarters.
Yeah, that's what we've been seeing as well. It's kind of seems to be across the board, in across all verticals within health tech that funding has effectively stabilized. Appears likely that we've passed the kind of the trough of funding. Maybe it's still going to be a little bit choppy, but I think we're kind of heading in the right direction overall. There seems to be some incredible market optimism this week, just broadly. I think so. We're at the halfway point of the year. Kind of, we're looking forward to potential interest rate cuts coming up. I think these are also going to be drivers. But for health tech specifically, funding has stabilized. Still, I think to no one's surprise, still significantly down from where it was in 21 and early 22 as well. But and then I think like certain areas have done better than others. Like for example, medtech funding is down, but it still has been relatively stable or relatively I think consistent compared to maybe an area like telehealth, like within consumer facing digital health, where it's down a lot more and doesn't appear to be kind of going back to close to where it was. So there's certainly kind of some disparities within health tech, but I think markets that have kind of long-term long-term profit potential, that are supported by by patents and regulations, like we see in the med tech sector, like we see with certain areas of digital health as well, like chronic condition management, for example. Like those areas are going to kind of have survived, I think, the dip, and they'll be okay. But it has been and still is kind of tough to get funding in a lot of cases.
Gotcha. So one of the spaces that's been emerging, and like I would say again, this reflects my opinions. I'm advocate for this space. It's the whole body scans. What's going on there? Like there are some startups there, but the market is not that well. I would say there aren't many competitors there, but in my opinion, like there will be need there. People are going toward that direction. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting emerging space, and I would kind of love to hear your views as well. But I wrote about this space a bit in this most recent report. I think the idea is great. I think the technology has a lot of potential. I think this just kind of goes back to if you can catch diseases, if you can catch cancer early, that's just a huge benefit to that, both for for lifespan, for cost savings, like across the board. So it's just can be super impactful and beneficial. I kind of see it as probably longer term, probably one piece of the puzzle. I don't know if it's necessarily realistic to have everyone get whole body scanning, just because that might not be super cost effective. And then I think also that just faces some risk I mean, where the market is right now, it's mainly a cash pay business. It's not, covered by by the payers to a large extent. Now that could change if they're able to show evidence that scanning can catch diseases early and save dollars longer term. But as it stands right now, it's mainly a cash pay business, and that's not accessible to everyone. And then faces some consumer risk there with that other cash pay businesses do face as well. But I think that's an emerging market. There's a few players in the space, and I think there's probably going to be more interest going forward, especially as, I guess, just compared to like another multi-cancer detection technology like liquid biopsy, which has also been emerging. There's been a lot of concern there that could drive false positives and maybe not make sense for large populations. And it's going to be kind of, like I said, another piece in that puzzle, another kind of tool in the toolbox, I guess, for oncologists and for providers to kind of offer to patients as they look to catch these diseases earlier.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I'm very, very excited about this space. Again, what I say, it reflects my thoughts. It does not reflect any of my the hospitals that I work in. Yeah. I am pro full body MRI for several reasons. Well, let's talk about the trend. So there has been trend. People are becoming more aware and conscious, like, about their health. People are trying to do biohacking, and there are many YouTube channels, videos, books about like living 100 plus and paying thousands of dollars for biohacking and blah, blah, blah. But I think people are becoming more conscious that the current guidelines are failing in detecting cancer. We act on cancer after it's a stage 4, after it causes symptoms, after your body lost all its reserve. And when the symptoms, our bodies are so resilient, so when symptoms start happening, usually we're at stage 4, and the treatment there really does not cure the cancer. So people are becoming conscious of that. I do think that the guidelines are failing people for several reasons. I see tons of young patients with cancer in my practice. But that being said, again, I work in academic center in downtown city and in downtown Detroit. So we see lots of also like unique cancers. But again, when you see young people with cancer, like, you don't want that happen to anyone. So the need is there. The need is there. One, the technology is not there. So the technology has to be there. Like, for example, Uber wouldn't succeed if there wasn't no technology, if there wasn't no GPS that gives you so accurate location and can track you and take you to your taxi. In this space, the technology is not there yet, because like MRI scans cost, as you said. Like people, like I call personally, it is something I'm interested to do. Usually they cost like $2,500. There are some companies that are doing plans where you go pay $500, and then like you then pay small lumps throughout a year or 2 years, which is good. But again, the technology is not there because it is expensive, and you can't apply it to the mass population. If everyone gets an MRI, you need radiologists to read all this. We don't have a specific strong, as my knowledge, we don't have good AI algorithms that can read 2 million reports over a week. It's all dependent on radiologists. So the technology has to improve. And you mentioned in your report also, like, Y Combinator is trying to advocate for startups who are emerging in early detection of cancer, which is something I love. Kudos to them. And the last thing is the liquid biopsy. So, for example, one of the companies, Guardant, they offer liquid biopsy. In my opinion, again, I'm not a liquid biopsy expert. The problem with liquid biopsy is you detect the DNA of the cancer in the blood. So when you detect the DNA of the cancer in the blood, that means there are some cancer cells already shedding into the blood. When the cancer cells shed into the blood, that's a situation where you don't want to detect cancer. You want to detect cancer much earlier before it sheds into the blood. That's why I'm not that excited about the liquid biopsy, because, again, I might be wrong. I'm not an expert on this, but a liquid biopsy is a stage where you have circulating cells in the blood, and I don't want to detect the cancer in that phase. I want to detect cancer when it is like still in the organ. It did not. Cancer cells travel in the body. Cancer is a systematic disease. It travels in the body. It's not like it's specified to a one organ. So we have to detect it early. So that's why I'm very excited also about the whole body scan and the whole body imaging.
Yeah, that's a really good point on the kind of the precancerous, whether it's lesions or just kind of being able to catch that earlier than stage one, stage two, etc. I think that's been one concern of about these liquid biopsy tests, and there's alternatives out there like in colon cancer, Exact Sciences Cologuard has been shown to kind of catch some of these precancerous polyps, but again, that kind of stool testing is not for everyone either. And so I think there's, and even in colon testing, colon cancer in particular, I believe it's 30 or 40% of folks kind of in the recommended range aren't getting screened at all. So it really, there needs to be alternatives that encourage that people that make it easy for folks to screen themselves to potentially catch cancer earlier. And I think, I thought you also made a good point with the radiologists as well, and just kind of that balance between technology and innovation. There's startups that exist now that are Pronovo, et cetera, that are in the whole body scanning space. I think technological innovations will drive this space forward as well. Whether it's kind of maybe more portable, cheaper MRI technologies, or even kind of going back to AI that can potentially rapidly scan a really large number of medical images and kind of find cancer that way. And I think that complements some of this, complements the work in this market too.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that surprised me in your report, the cardiac arrest space, it looks like this space is becoming more interesting, and there are some companies arising in this space. I thought like we have now the defibrillators everywhere, like in the mall, in the shopping center, but like it looks like some companies are trying to really innovate in this space. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think there's, you like you mentioned that you do have defibrillators out there, but a lot of when there's a cardiac arrest event, you're not always in the right place where there is a defib available, or where there's kind of a professional who's able to assist with that. So I think there's innovations, there are technologies there that can I think there's two sides of it. One is sort of the prevention, or kind of the warning signs. I think there's companies out there developing algorithms that can provide minutes or hours warning of a potential cardiac event, and then in that case you could theoretically have someone drive to the hospital, for example, or go see your provider, or whatever the case may be. And then when a cardiac event does occur, kind of having more accessible, essentially, technologies that can help in that scenario, that don't rely on defibrillators, which are quite expensive and not available everywhere. So I think you could see a world where they're more accessible, they're cheaper, they're in the home, etc. So that's kind of in one area. Yeah, so I kind of took a look at that space there. I think we're not in that future state yet, but there's these new technologies emerging that could potentially make that happen.
Yeah, I think this is similar to when it comes to cancer, treating cancer when it is advanced stage versus preventing it. Again, it's cardiac arrest, preventing it rather than treating it. And you mentioned that there are some technologies that are trying to even predict cardiac arrest happening. Even minutes can make a huge difference. So one of the things that I don't think many people know about me, before becoming an oncologist, I was a cardiology enthusiast. So I spent a year in the almost like 5 months of them in the critical coronary care unit, and like I've seen tons of patients with cardiac arrest. So when cardiac arrest happens and your heart stops, people jump on you and like they press on your chest, and the idea is we will mimic that compression that happens in the heart, and we will pump the blood to your brain because we want to preserve the brain. The brain dies after like a couple of minutes without blood going through. So sometimes you are able to restart the heart by pressing it. But if you are like a couple of minutes late and you already have a brain death, restarting the heart is meaningless.
Yeah.
Because these patients, out of, if I have 100 patients with cardiac arrest, maybe 10 of them will survive, 5 of them will have severe neurological compromise. So these minutes are gold, and they are very important.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Right, exactly. I mean, yeah, even if you're able to, yeah, just a few minutes difference and start, be able to alert your provider or head to the hospital or whatever the case may be. Yeah, that can make a huge, huge difference. And like you said, these events can be ultimately quite catastrophic for someone's health. So I think there's,
Yeah.
a lot of ways that kind of technologies could help and potentially, make it, less impactful.
I want to shift the gears a bit about like some companies that you highlighted
Mhm.
in your report, and let's see what's going on with them. So, Healthy.io, what's going on with them, and what are your future predictions for these companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Healthy IO is uh, it's a global startup and at home testing company. They're a pretty
Mm-hmm.
interesting company because they operate a few different business models. They
Mm-hmm.
provide services for at home testing of the kidney function. They also have a wound care division, and so they've kind of successfully been able to pivot from kind of a pure telehealth essentially component to having kind of more of these proprietary diagnostic tools. And I think one of their core technology or innovations is an at-home urine test, which is differentiated from their competitors as well, which typically are blood tests that you have to send off to a lab. So when you're able to kind of do these tests at home, and just kind of have a strip, indicate your kidney health, for example, I think that's just part of a larger trend of bringing rapid testing to the home and to the point of care as well. But just having these like testing be more accessible. And just kind of going forward, I was able to connect with the company, and they're right now focused on U.S. expansion. I think maybe
Oh, wow.
they were maybe a bit too ambitious, like looking back a couple of years ago. And I think they realized that the U.S. offers potentially a stronger market opportunity in the short term. So that's what kind of they're using their funds for currently.
Very cool. Yeah, like US market is huge. Like I
Mhm.
think like it is nice to like for me, for example, like I'm Canadian and it's really great to innovate in Canada. And but we all know that if you bring an innovation in Canada, you can maybe make money, but you're not going to achieve that successful exit. You can't go global by just staying in Canada. It's just like numbers game, right? So you have 30 million people in Canada versus 250 million people in the US. It's just like
Mhm.
pure numbers game. It's a fact. I love cat, don't get me wrong, but it's a fact. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you have some dynamics in the U.S. market as well with just kind of I think greater potential funding opportunities. Maybe greater valuations when you get to the exit stage. And healthcare here in the U.S. is quite costly. There's a lot of unnecessary
I know.
costs, but I think from the startup perspective, that can, I think it can provide opportunity. That's just kind of the nature of the market. Obviously, we want healthcare to be less expensive, but that also, in some sense, powers some innovation. But yeah, I've also, certainly heard from other kind of Europe-based companies that they like the opportunity in Europe, but they certainly their main, their goal ultimately is to target the US market longer term too.
Cool. And lastly, Page.ai or Page. This is a
Mhm.
company really close to my heart because like first they've been on the show before and they also we talked about their diagnostic test. So just to give my thoughts on it. So if we have a patient with specific type of cancer, we have to know what kind of receptors there are on the cancer so we can act on it. And usually have to send expensive tests. Beyond after doing the biopsy, we still have to send that sample to a test.
Mhm.
So for the listeners, Page.ai can look how the cancer cells look like under the microscope and can give you an estimate what receptors there are on the surface of the cells. So it helps more in precision medicine. And Andy Moy, or I would say Dr. Moy, he was on the show, and kudos to them. They've been doing great job. So what are your thoughts on them? What they are doing? What the future maybe like holds for them?
Yeah, for sure. they're definitely a startup to watch. They're on my radar in terms of kind of where they are as a company. They've raised over $200 million, which is pretty successful. They're
Yeah,
also, they're very innovative. I believe they are the first, and I believe they're still the only company to receive clearance from the FDA for an AI-powered
correct.
digital diagnostic solution for digital pathology. So that was obviously a good success for them. Um, they've also been able to take advantage of the opportunities along with I guess recent AI innovation. They signed a partnership with Microsoft and kind of working to iterate on their model with kind of a larger number of digital slides. So I think that's the kind of exciting development as well. Um, from my understanding, the company is focused right now on their core capabilities in breast and prostate, but also have ambitions to expand to a kind of a multi-cancer set with up to 17 cancers, I believe. But I think it's also just a good a good positive sign that they're kind of willing to go through the formal FDA channels. It indicates strategic patience. That's I guess a direction that others we've seen other startups in medtech. I wouldn't call it taking shortcuts, but I think it's true that if you're trying to reach milestones, if you're trying to commercialize, you might not have the patience, I guess, to kind of go through these formal channels for your diagnostics. So I think that's just a positive sign that they have a strong investor base, and that's certainly true as well with kind of the dollars that they've raised. So, and I guess just kind of thinking longer term, I think it's kind of difficult to say, what the longer term future looks like. I think an IPO is possible. PitchBook has a proprietary VC exit predictor score that we assign to VC backed startups. So we assign Page a 69% chance of an successful IPO. That doesn't mean that if it doesn't happen that that they won't successfully exit. Certainly, an acquisition is also a possibility, and that accounts kind of for the bulk of that. And I think within digital pathology, it's just a market that could make sense as well to kind of consolidate adjacent solutions and try to build out kind of comprehensive portfolios. But I would say they're still, they're not they're not in the early innings. They do have an FDA cleared product. They might be if you're talking baseball analogy, they might be in the fourth or fifth inning. But I think they have a bright future ahead, and I think it's going to be great to kind of watch additional innovations from them in the coming years as well.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
It's one of the companies that are, again, I really like what they are doing, and I'm a big advocate for precision medicine. I see one of the challenges they face, and it's something I knew recently. So I've been learning more about this space. So I think one of the challenges that they may face, it's the under digitalization of pathology scans. So when we take a biopsy from a patient, we usually put it in the slide, the old way, like how pathologists did it 100 years ago. And then they examined that pathology slide under the microscope. And let's say if a patient from center A is going to come and see me, I'm in center B, they usually send that slide literally to a center B, because not many centers have the technology, one, to scan, two, to take deep scans. So actually, this is like something I just learned, that it's not enough to scan the slide. So there is a machine to scan the slide and digitize it. But then there is another machine that gives you the ability to zoom in and zoom out, just like you do in Google Maps. So it's just like not only the scanning of the earth, it's just like you have to go really deep into the earth to where algorithms or like softwares like Page.ai software can be really helpful. So I think that's one of the challenges that they might face. But I'm hoping that this is going to change with time, because I'm seeing more and more day by day, like more centers are going toward digital pathology rather than having an old system glass slide. So I just hope this works, because this is one of their core requirements, I think, to make their technology more accessible.
Yeah, that was something I kind of knew to an extent, but it's great to hear, your additional context on that too. I also think that kind of new innovations like what they're doing, maybe could incentivize some of these centers to, to
Fair enough.
modernize.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
so. Hopefully, it
That's a
could be
good
sort
thought.
of a positive cycle.
Yeah. All righty. Sounds good. Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. I really appreciate your time. And I'm
Yeah,
looking
thanks for having me.
forward also to keep reading your reports and maybe having you for a third episode in one of the reports in the coming months.
Sure, sounds good. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.